It's your girl Esther Joy coming at you with another video. On this channel, we like to talk about love, light, joy, and peace. And today, my friend, we got a live vibe on YouTube. We're going to be talking about taking ownership. Now, I wanted to talk about and break this down into different categories to make it more digestible. So we're going to be talking about taking ownership of our mind, our body, and our soul in terms of the different relationships we have with these things. Ultimately, taking ownership of the relationships that we find ourselves in. Now, I'm really thankful to just take a moment to connect with you and explore this topic. While we're chatting, I'm also going to be painting because I find the times where I'm relaxing most and the ideas that the messages that come through, they come through really strong when I paint or create something. What is good, spiritual way? What is good, beautiful souls? I'm really excited for today's chat. So we're going to be talking about taking ownership, and I just feel led to say that we don't really own anything in this world. Oh, let that sink in. Okay, like, sure, I bought this paint. It's great. And my body, even, like, it's great. What is good, Jay Coogie? And thank you so much for just coming through. Appreciate it always, and so happy that you resonated. Yeah, like, I think that's a really good a good note, and we're going to talk about taking ownership of self because I've been reflecting a lot, and I'm going to be painting a special painting for a special soul. Sorry, Sam. If you ever, dang, I didn't say your name right. All right, you're gonna have to pronounce it, bro. What's good, Isaiah? I love you. But yeah, we're gonna be doing a little abstract painting. For this, I literally just have a bag of paints. I just shuffle around in there. Think about the person that I'm painting for, and the colors come through, and these are the colors that we're gonna be painting with. Okay, we got some blue, we got some green, okay, we got some yellow ochre, we already have white, some gold, and some, it looks like some brown, okay, some raw umber, light brown, okay, cool. All right, so why do we need to take ownership? All right, why do we need to take ownership? Let's just get into it. Well, first of all, when it comes to, I'm going to tell a little story, good viber, because I feel led to, okay? I feel led to. In my own life, when I was struggling the most with my porn addiction, and I actually had a little bit of a substance abuse issue with smoking weed, I was smoking way too much all the time, and it was just not, it was self-destructive. So that was a struggle. That was a struggle, and I would blame other things. I'd be like, well, it's hard to cope with life because it just sucks. So I need to do these things. I need to escape in this way. And instead of taking ownership for what I was doing or really being fully aware of what I was spending my time doing, because I understood on some level it was self-destructive, I decided to ignore those things. And again, like, these things in their own nature, nothing is made evilly. Nothing is made in a bad way. It's really the amount. And that's what causes the imbalance. And so there was not a balance here. It was definitely not balanced. And I didn't want to take accountability for being the reason why it wasn't balanced. Like, in my mind, I was just like chilling. I was just watching myself just self-destruct, and I didn't want to take ownership for that, because then I would have to admit to myself that I really messed up somewhere. Like, this isn't what I wanted. And I think in the spiritual community, some people are really like, you gotta like fake it till you make it, or some other kind of like, which is totally cool and has its place. Again, there's a place for everything under the sun that works. But I think when you don't acknowledge what you're trying to change, you can never really change it. It's like slapping a band-aid on there and saying like, all right, on to the next one. Like, it doesn't work like that, my friend. You already know that. So in my own life, it really came down to realizing that, hey, this isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be kind of doing these self-destructive things that aren't helping me. They're not making me feel better. I don't think they're helping anyone. And I was blaming other people. At first, I was blaming the relationship I was in for the reason I was putting myself in a porn addiction. And I was blaming the society and the system for the reason why I felt like I had to smoke weed all the time, because it was the only way I could get out of the system. And to be honest, I was blaming myself instead of taking ownership, because I was like, I'm the reason I'm in this situation. And so there was this, like, instead of having compassion, it was more like this twisted kind of blame at myself. And so instead of taking ownership at that time in my life, I was running away. Like, you could call me a sprinter, because I was sprinting away from myself. It was like, don't look back, just keep running. Okay, don't look back, just keep running. What was I running away from, really? Like, there was nothing except myself and what I had done behind me. So, yeah, I feel like I'm happy spiritual, talking to yourself about it last night. Oh, you're not alone. It's a tough task to get to the root. But you know what? Running is not the answer, okay? Sometimes running is the answer. Like, if, the apocalypse really happens and everyone turns into zombies, okay? You're gonna be happy you know how to run. But not from yourself, not from the responsibility. Like, hey, if something you love and cherish and value and a zombie apocalypse comes, and this is, of course, a symbol, if that happens and you run away, you're leaving what you value, and therefore it's just like, what you gonna do? Like, what can you do if you run away from the one thing you value? What is your life worth at that point? And I'm not a runner. I'm gonna be honest. It can't be a fast race or a long race, because I'll get tired fast. But that's pretty much what happened. And when I couldn't run away anymore, and the problems were still there, when I was realizing I can't run away from reality, I can't escape this, because this is a part of my life. This is a part of my experience. I can't escape my family. I can't escape these people, because this is a part of the experience. And when I saw that, and when I realized, like, I can't escape my substance abuse issues by using these substances to try to escape from them. It just doesn't make sense. But in my mind, I was blaming everything else I possibly could, saying, this is the reason why. This is the reason why. Any messed up thing in the world, that's why this is justifiable. Even to myself, I'm like, I'm messed up. This is fine. Okay? Yeah. But at the same time, none of us are perfect. And this is when ownership comes into play. And there's a really powerful saying, a leader is a leader because they take ownership not only for themselves, but for everyone that they were leading. And I believe we're all leaders. I believe that with every cell in my body, because we're leading every cell in our body. Okay? You want to say our consciousness is leading these cells? You can say the consciousness is leading these cells, but something is leading us. And that's the power of ownership. You begin to have power over what you are taking ownership for. I remember in school, I make mistakes, okay? I'm really bad with social cues and stuff like that. And there are many times where I probably said something I shouldn't have, or, totally, totally messed up with whatever whoever gave me assignment said. And you know what? There were parts of me, even if I did everything right, and now I'm coming from a business perspective with clients. I like to make art. I like to make art. I used to do commissions like logos and stuff, and sometimes people will be like, "Why did you do that?" Even though I did exactly what they said, they'd be like, "I want a diamond. I want this font." So I was like, "All right, I'm gonna take a diamond, and I'm gonna take this font." And they would blame me later down the road if it wasn't successful, even though I was just designing a picture for them. And then I realized, like, okay, I'm going to take ownership for this. I'm going to take ownership for this. And when I started doing that, not only was I able to help serve them in a way that ultimately helped myself, but I also realized the power that ownership brought, not only to my life, but theirs as well. When you take ownership for things, whether it is something somebody says, something somebody does, something that you had no control over. It doesn't mean that, hey, you should go around saying, I'm sorry to every single person that died or every single misfortune that happens. But what do you want to fix in the world? What do you want to see change? Because if you can take ownership for it, guess what? That's where your vibration is going to resonate at. It's going to resonate at a place where you're taking that heaviness and you're raising it up because you're saying, hey, I might not have been the one that did all of this, but I will take ownership for it. Like, look at the world. I think a lot of the times we're just like, the amount of times my friends have been like, throw garbage out the window. I'm not gonna add any money because they feel like it doesn't really matter. And I live in New York, okay? It's pretty polluted. But because no one wants to take ownership for it, nothing gets done. And yeah, it's wild. Spiritual way, I started my path. Yo, I think we all start our path when we were born. Like, let's be real, some of us are like, I didn't want to live this life. And let me tell you right now, I think you know that you kind of signed a contract before you came here on Earth. You were like, all right, what's the mission? This is a mission. You're gonna go down on Earth. You're gonna do what you're here for, and you're gonna like it. I don't know if the liking part was like, I think it was optional, but it helps. When you take ownership over your life, what does that look like, my friend? What does that look like? Now, there was a study done, and this is like, I'm just gonna throw this food for thought, where this wasn't even a study. This was just a murder case where a woman outside of her own apartment was stabbed. The assault person, the assaulter, I'm not sure what to call the murderer, that's the name, stabbed her with a knife. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And guess what? She was screaming help the whole time. And guess what? There were people there. She just got off the bus from work. It was dark. It was like 10. And she was assaulted. And guess what? Somebody opened their window and they said, quiet down there. Quiet down there. They opened their window and they had the audacity to say to somebody that was being murdered in front of their eyes to quiet down. Like, why am I bringing this up? There were other people in the street. Okay. If she knew any of their names and she said, hey, yo, Jonathan, help me. They're stabbing me. Do you think Jonathan would have an obligation? He would now have some sense of ownership to that woman's life. That's just food for thought. There's this thing called diffused responsibility. So what is good? Peace with you, Michael. So when there are many people and you say, hey guys, let's do this, most of the times they're not going to do anything because no one has ownership. You're just telling this out into the world, like, okay, this is it, guys, this is it. Who are you directing that at? And that's what we're seeing kind of happen. We're waiting for somebody to change the world. We're waiting for somebody to call us out and say, it's your time to help. Because that is, for a lot of us, that's how we feel like that's how we are going to get that ownership. We're waiting for somebody to give us the keys to our part of the earth that we're here to protect because we all came here with a sovereign mission. And now we're all like, where are those keys? Where the keys at? And guess what? That key is yourself. That key is your body. That key is like your life. Now, sometimes people get fortunate enough, if you want to say, that they are given this really heavy responsibility. And that responsibility is to take ownership for an aspect of their life that isn't only just for their life, but going to be reflected in all of the collective, everyone they interact with. And I think that's really cool. How often do we look at taking ownership as a good thing? I think a lot of the times we associate it, or I associate it, with risk. It's like, if you take ownership for this, then you're taking responsibility for the success or failure. A lot of the times when I think of taking ownership, I think about my own mistakes in life and how I feel so much stronger when I take ownership for those failures in life, even though failure is not really fun. It's not something anyone really wants, but it is something that teaches us so much. And if we don't take ownership of our failures, then you're going to have to repeat that failure over and over again until eventually you do take ownership, because that failure is here to teach you a lesson. So when somebody says, who did that mistake right there? Don't be afraid to say, I did. Because guess what? Whether whoever said that, which is probably God or source, they're gonna be like, nice, you took ownership for that. Guess what? You leveled up because you understood what the lesson was and you understood why you had to make that failure. When you take ownership of the failures in your life, of the things that don't work out, you give the responsibility to not only you, because you are so much more than just your little flesh body. Your flesh body is just to remind you that you are the owner of this experience. This is how you're perceiving it through this body that you've been given. It's like a literal, really cool, I like to say robot, okay, but I feel like robot's not the best way. But, anyways, we are living in a stimulation. And the more we can take ownership for what we are perceiving, the funner this stimulation can be. The more we can attune ourselves to what we want to perceive and sense. So, making mistakes is important. And the more we can not make ourselves, the more we can allow ourselves to take ownership for these things, the mistakes and everything that life brings, the more power we will have. That's it. That's it. And I don't think that we all are out here to just get power. No, I don't think you guys are all power hungry psychopaths. I don't really like to use the word psychopaths, but yeah. I think that we all just want to make the world a better place. And I believe that starts with you. And that sounds so corny, and you've probably heard it so many times, but it's true. So mentally, when we find ourselves in this place where we have some kind of learned helplessness, and this can look like not believing that it's our fault for the failures that we're in. And I'm going to take this in a literal sense. when we rely on others to assist us in a way like, show me what my life mission is, and we look outside of ourselves, looking for where that life mission is, looking for what I'm here to do, looking for how I can help. And of course, when you keep your eyes open like that, you're gonna see it. But imagine if you don't take ownership for that mission. Okay, imagine if you don't take ownership for your life. Guess what? A lot of people don't, because it's scary and no one told them how to live life. And that's totally fine. You know, we're all kind of just big baby children that are trying to navigate through the world. Like, I think about that sometimes. We're all just big baby children trying to navigate through the world. So it's kind of comforting if somebody else can tell us what to do. But guess what? All they're doing is taking ownership over you and your energy and time so that they can use it for their own agenda. So you better resonate with that agenda, or that might not be what you want to do. With that being said, when we take ownership, when we just, I don't, I feel like I'm throwing that word again. Somebody should count how many times I say it. No, don't do that. Or do, I can't force you, but when we take responsibility for the life that we live, for the feelings that we feel, so many times, and even in my own life, I use this example of a childhood's friend and his wife, and every time I connect with them, she'll always mention how mad she gets because somebody always knows how to tick her off. And so she'll say things like, I'm so mad, he knows exactly how to make me mad, he's going to do it. Just watch how he's gonna say something that's gonna make me really mad. So again, we think about manifestation, and it's just really interesting. So they're not taking ownership of their emotions. And I do the same thing. Sometimes I have to catch myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, this person, they talk. I get so frustrated. And I'm not taking ownership, right? I'm just like, this person. I'm throwing all of this energy. And what's more, it's like negative energy at them. They've done nothing. They're just doing their thing. They're just being. And I'm out here projecting. And I'm feeding energy to this other entity that isn't assisting either of us. When you take ownership for that, do you know how much difficulter that becomes? Is that even a word, difficulter? Well, it is now. Because you realize, like, hold on, I'm in control of this energy. Where am I going to put this? Am I really going to invest it in that kind of inner dialogue? Or am I going to take a moment, just a moment, to see, okay, this is my energy. How am I going to spend it? Same thing with your time. I feel like time is one of the most important and most valuable things that we have. And I know I've made a video about it before, but when we give other people ownership over our time, we pretty much can find it a lot easier to, what's good, Sir Jester? We find it easier to slack off, procrastinate. It feels like the justification is just, what's good, get right. I'm just gonna say that. But imagine when somebody's like, all right, cool, you have this much time, you know, work on the clock. Now you're like, all right, cool, that's their time. I'm working on their time. So I'm gonna slack off. You don't have to take ownership for how you spend your time. And I'm gonna use this real life example. So with the whole school situation and me being self-employed, I realized going to school, I was just like, well, I just have to be in class for this amount of time and get the work done. All right. I would slack off so much, and I developed really unhealthy coping mechanisms to just deal with spending time, because whatever was whatever. And so some of those unhealthy coping mechanisms I kind of already talked about especially I had a little bit of a substance abuse issue. And so going to school, I just needed to fill up that time. I just needed to be present and do the work. And I was like, I can do that with my eyes closed. I can do that while super duper high. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that because it's their time I'm on. I just need to be here and participate. And so now I'm in a different spot. Now I'm working for myself. And I think about like how I used to spend my time. And it makes me shudder because I'm like, okay, now I have to create a strategy, a system, and a plan so that I'm actually productive and that I actually serve people and deliver on my promises and create a structure that is assisting me in this. And the thought of procrastinating, the thought of going back to some of the habits that I used to do to kind of just spend time because I was like, well, I finished this assignment. I'm just gonna, do this because why not spend my time that way? When I took ownership over my time, that's when everything changed because I realized I couldn't spend my time doing these things. I couldn't spend my time just smoking weed all day and like getting high and just procrastinating and like indulging in these kind of unhealthy behaviors because I knew how that would affect me in the long run and that would waste my time ultimately. I did these things to kind of waste my time because I had time to waste. And now I'm in a spot where it's like, okay, I'm my own boss. I can't do that anymore because that's not going to actually help me with the long-term goal. And when I took ownership of how I was spending my time, I was shocked at how that changed my behavior. How I was no longer looking for an escape route or looking for another distraction, but it was literally like, no, this isn't an option anymore. I have to do work. And this doesn't mean like a workaholic, gotta work all the time. No, it was more like I want to be able to be balanced in my work. And that's really where the ownership of the time came. So, to put it in context, now I feel like, wow, something has changed. And the only thing that changed was I realized that I'm not working for somebody else. They're not going to just give me money for not doing anything and me just spending all my time. Like, sure, I think we all could do many of the tasks that a typical 9 to 5 have you do in like half the time if we really wanted to. But because we're getting paid by the hour, it's so much easier to just be like, well, they're paying me for my time. They have ownership over my time. So I'm just kind of lollygag with my time. And I love that word lollygag. I challenge you to use that in a sentence. Um, but when I realized, like, okay, now it's me. Now I'm the boss. Now I don't have time to lollygag around because I am the one that is in charge of making sure I get these things done. It changed everything. I took ownership of more than just my time, but my habits, how I spend my free time. Because I realized, well, that's not helping me rest in the way I want to. And so it helped me look for better, more productive, and just overall more healthier and holistic ways to cope with it. So I want to remind you that you're not alone. And the more you can take ownership of the time and how you're spending it, the more you will improve. And it's scary because I feel like some things, like we can say past traumas that weren't our fault, and sure, they weren't our fault. We were too young to do anything or control anything. But that still doesn't mean you can't take ownership for having that experience and translating it in the way that you did. And that's the important thing. It's not to say that you are taking ownership for what somebody else did, because some things that people do are just kind of not acceptable in my eyes. But it is seeing that you had this experience for a reason and you can take ownership for that because you're in this body. You're in your body for a reason and you're having these experiences for a reason. You're able to sense them and perceive them and to experience them for a reason. So taking ownership for the experience and how you're interpreting it allows you to how shall I say, improve the situation. Just like when you take ownership for your failures, you no longer face those failures. It's almost like you're like, nah, me and my failures became real close friends, and now that we're close friends, they help me out in the situations which would have caused a repetition of those failures. What is good, MK X? Dang, I'm sorry. These names aren't even. I'm just butchering them for fun now, I feel. No, I'm not. I'm sorry, but I take ownership for how I pronounce names. Let me leave it at that. But yeah, I would love to know what is one thing that you are wanting to take ownership of. This could be something in your life that you just want to change. You just want to see that change. And you're looking for somebody to come along and be like, oh, hey, what is good? I'm going to call you out by your name and I'm going to tell you to change. If you're looking for the universe to tell you, like, hey, you know, the sidewalk Sid. Okay, I can say, hi, Sid. What's good? I'm sorry, that was like a name I think I pronounced right. But if you're looking for the universe to start screaming at you, saying, hey, it's time to change. It's time to take ownership of your life experience. Then this is a wake up call, okay? Take it as a sign, okay? Take it as you will. Okay, interpret it as you will, but take ownership for how you interpret it. Okay, because it really comes down to your interpretation. Like everything that happens, as humans, we have our perspective and we can only see things the way that we can. And thank you for making up a random name. I don't know. Do you like pronounce it as words in your head or is it like letters? Because I would love to know. But yeah, okay, spiritual white. All right, taking ownership for speaking. Okay, I think that you've been speaking pretty well on the stream, and that's definitely something that is always good to acknowledge. I'm gonna close my door real fast. Hold your breath. Okay, nice. Okay. Ooh, nice. What is good? Yeah, take ownership. Like sometimes we look for external validation for things. Like we look for somebody to be like, "Oh, you're really good at that. You should take ownership. You should do that more, okay? Oh, that's a skill that kind of is good for you. You should like do that more." Or even things that people ridicule for saying, "Oh, that's a mistake. Why'd you do that? You're going to regret that." Take ownership for it. Because if you don't take ownership for it, my friend, I'm pretty sure it will repeat. And I don't know if we really want that. I think we're ready for growth. And if you're watching this, then you are definitely ready for growth. Okay, look, we're getting in there. These are so interesting, these paintings. Okay, I'm gonna hold it up one more time because I feel like y'all want to see. Ooh, it's like I'm not even sure. We're gonna keep. That looks like a gummy bear. Alrighty, I'm done. Anyways, we're just vibing and taking ownership. I used to really not like these abstract paintings because I was like, this is confusing and weird. And then I realized, like, actually, like it's intuitive, and I enjoy the intuition of it. It's almost seamless. I don't really have to think, and so I took ownership of it. So even with our body, nice water hitting fire. Oh, that's interesting. Water hitting fire. Okay. Even with our body, I know many people that have struggled with like eating disorders and a lot of mental disorders as well. And like, hey, I think we all have our slew of mental disorders or physical disorders or disabilities. And then we can either blame everything on them. I think we all know one person that blames everything in their life on this disability in their life, okay? And that's not to say to like invalidate it, because that is how their perspective and how they're perceiving and interpreting that experience for them. So it's 100% valid. But imagine if they took ownership for it instead of blaming the disability for things that might not be the disability's fault, but might be more of a spiritual or energetic block that is causing them to avoid actually taking ownership of their power so that they can reach their maximum potential, if that makes sense. Ooh, Edward, I literally cry for my life experience, what I did and what happened to me. I'm struggling to forgive myself and struggling to understand. You are safe, my friend. If you are here, you are safe. And God, Source, Oneness, Creator loves you very much. I think the hard experience, the stronger you come out, okay? That sounds cliche. But why? Because you are not alone, and that also sounds cliche. My goodness, we're full of cliches today. But why? When we take ownership of this experience, however bad it is, we have the opportunity to help others that will be in the same or similar situation. And take a moment to just think about what that looks like in your own life. It could be something simple, it could be something painful, it could be something heavy, it could be something light. When we take ownership for these aspects of our experience, how we interpret it, how it came to us, what it felt like. When we take ownership, it doesn't mean that we're like, oh yeah, like I'm the one, God, God's gonna be like, who made this bitch cry? And you're gonna be like, I did. But it's more like, I went through this. This was my experience. I'm going to own this experience because this is mine, just like my body. It doesn't look like anybody else's. It's not supposed to. Everything is unique to the person experiencing it. When we take ownership for these things, we not only help ourselves by seeing, hey, it's okay, you're safe now. You're in control. And that's how you gain control, by taking ownership. Now, I think especially with everything that's going on, a lot of people are fearful and don't want to take ownership of, let's say, their health or the situation we find ourselves in. And when we don't take ownership of these things, it's not like they go away. It's not like, okay, you're right, this happened to you, and God's gonna be like, I'm the one to blame, you right. No, well, guess what? You co-created this experience. You agreed to this before. And now the question is why? Why should I take ownership? What does it look like to take ownership? What does it look like to own my life, my body, my mind, my soul? In a way where you are not selling it to somebody else because you're too afraid to take ownership of your own being. Okay, so take ownership. Just do it. I know it's a lot easier said than done, especially with the more difficult situations, which just make your heart heavy and feel pain and hurt. But when you do take ownership for those areas, you create an energetic signature that helps other people realize that they are not as helpless as they thought. And the amount of people that I meet that share the most heartbreaking part of their life and their journey was also the point where they needed to awaken something within them so that they could take ownership of that moment and they could grow and become stronger. And not only that, but actually help other people. I've heard of people that have healed from sicknesses I didn't even know existed. And this happened when they realized that they don't have to settle for this, that they can take responsibility for their health and their being, even if it's not the best and it's not optimal. A coward will take ownership when things are all going right, when their manifestation is there, and when their dreams are all there. It's easy to take ownership for a winning team and being like, yeah, that's my team. It's a lot harder to take ownership for something that's not going as well. And Jedi wants to go outside, so hold your breath. Oh, yeah, good boy. When things aren't going well, we don't want to be like, well, this is my fault. This is my doing. I will take ownership. And this isn't to play the blame game again to ourselves, which it becomes a little bit of a slippery slope. But it is to know that, hey, you're just here to be where you are. So, I'm very, very thankful. I'm very thankful. Oh, 313. Dang, that was good. That was a good band. But what's good, Mark One? What's good? So, I respect the people that take ownership at the lowest points of their life. And I've definitely said that like 127 times, Isaiah. Because do you know, and you definitely do if you're watching this, how difficult it can be to be in a situation that is so undesirable that you just want to escape, but instead you stay and you ground into it. Excuse me. And when you ground into it, you now have control over that situation. Take fear, for example. Fear wants you to run away. It doesn't want you to take ownership for how you feel. It wants you to be controlled because you're in a state where you're no longer thinking for yourself. And so you're not taking, I guess you could say, responsibility for your emotions anymore because you're in such a fight or flight state of mind that you're just moving without thinking. And that's perfect for anyone who wants to control you with fear. When you take ownership for your emotions, you are now responsible for how you react. And the fear no longer has the effect it could have if you were not responsible for how you felt. This doesn't mean that you feel better or worse. It just means that you're aware and you're allowing yourself to stare the eyes of fear in your eyes, face off, and be like, hey, like, I see that you out here trying to revoke my energies, but in reality, I'm right here and this is me and I'm interpreting in this a way that's actually going to help me because I'm responsible for how I feel and I'm responsible for how I act. And it's chapters, right? I think that we wake up in chapters. When I started, I just felt crazy and I felt like I couldn't tell anyone. And I also felt like this world is crazy and not meant for me. And why am I alive on a planet that obviously just doesn't seem welcoming to the wandering soul? And then I started taking ownership for just how I felt. I started taking ownership for how I wanted to express myself, for the words I was saying to myself, to others, and everything kind of changed from there. So, yeah. When you are ready, I don't know why I'm saying when you're ready. You're obviously ready right now, and that's why we're having this conversation. As we begin to take more ownership for our being, especially our mistakes, especially the parts of ourselves that we know we need to forgive, or we might be upset at ourselves for, or we might feel a little angry that they're there and these things happened, we give ourselves permission to have control in a way where we're no longer self-sabotaging ourselves. We're no longer looking for somebody else to give us the key to our own experience. But we're here to change the world, and that begins with just taking ownership over the part of the world that you are residing in, your body. When I was reflecting on the words take ownership, it literally pictured your body being a vessel and the spirit within you are possessing the vessel. So when you are taking ownership of your being, you are no longer allowing foreign entities to go in you. This means that anger and some of the more negative vibrations, some of the more shady fear agenda entities, they can no longer feed on you and reside in your vessel because you have taken full possession over your sovereign being. And so it's important to take ownership for your health, and it's just everything. Doesn't mean that you gotta start being like, well, now the world's my responsibility, and man, it's my fault that climate change is a thing or something like that. I'm not sure why, but yeah, enjoy it. Just enjoy having fun with who you are and what responsibility looks like to you and that control looks like to you. Having a balance and trusting that these things happen for a reason and they will show themselves in due time. But yeah, I enjoy you, beautiful souls, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, that this inspired you in some way, hopefully to take responsibility and just change the way that you see things. And I will see you in the next insert gesture. You don't have to apologize for changing the climate, okay? You too hot in here with these comments, okay? But nah, I thank you and I appreciate you, and I just want you to know that this is the moment. Whatever you took ownership for in this conversation, it's going to do a 360 and it's going to just improve. And that's all I feel led to say. So I appreciate you. And it's all good. You can watch the replay, Markman. I love you all. And I appreciate you for spending some time with me. Oh, here's a painting one last time. It's totally not done at all, but I'm enjoying how this is going. It's fun. Okay. Namaste. And God bless. I'll see you in the next video or live. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about next. If you have any suggestions, always open. Alright, God bless. Namaste.